What's going on, YouTube? Today I bring you my number 19 power rank team for the 2021 NFL season, and that is going to be, as you saw by the title, the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is painful to put them this low for such an amazing defense, such an amazing coach, such an amazing culture. But God, this offense is horrible. And so we're going to talk about it today. Before we get into that, let me just give you a quick reminder. If you do enjoy the videos, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. It does help me out a ton, and it gets this video out to the larger audience. So if you want to do that, go ahead. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Starting off with the receiving core, as per normal. This is a really good receiving core. We've had a lot of those recently. This is, it's not as good as like, the Dolphins or the Cowboys, but it is still pretty solid. Your number one right now, I'd imagine, is still probably going to be Juju. He's a guy that's been overrated for the most of his career. He had one great year, and he's just not really produced since that year. He's had some injury issues and stuff like that. He went out as a free agent this year and didn't get paid because NFL teams knew this guy was not worth what everyone thought he was going to get. So he signed back with the Steelers for 1 year, and we'll see what he does. Maybe he plays better, maybe he doesn't. It's going to be hard with some other conditions, but he's probably your number one right now. Your number two, obviously, going to be Chase Claypool, who was fantastic. I'm not going to sit here and say that Chase Claypool wasn't amazing. He was. I think he led rookie receivers in touchdowns. The dude was dominant. There's no other word for it. As a rookie, that's a dominant thing, unless you're Justin Jefferson. So Chase Claypool, obviously your number two, easily your number one moving forward, unless Juju has some big turnaround. And then beyond them, Deontay Johnson, has a drop issue, but when he's not dropping, he is very good at after the catch and stuff, so he's also a nice receiver to have. James Washington, also a very solid number four. And then Ray McCloud, one of the better kick returners in the NFL. You put it all together, and you have a very solid receiving group here. It is very young, and there is a ton of upside, especially with guys like Claypool. So I think it's good enough to get you a B+. Not quite an A, but it's a really good room. Now we move into easily the worst part of the entire team, the offensive line. I want to headline this by saying this is maybe the worst offensive line in football. I don't want to sit right here and say it is the worst. It's one of the worst. It's bad. At left tackle, you're going to be starting Chukwuma Okorafor. He was really good, actually, at the start of last season when he had to play, and then he really cooled down towards the end and looked really bad there at the end. So he's moving over to left side. I don't know how I feel about that. Obviously, playing left tackle is harder than right tackle most of the time. Hopefully, he returns to kind of that form that he first showed us. Jaron Jones is whatever. Dan Moore, I didn't like him as a pick, in my opinion. I haven't seen anyone that actually did like that pick. He's not a good pick, in my opinion. I don't see him be developing into anything. So you have a guy that, ideally, you're not even gonna really want as your starter 99 times out of 100. He'd be a good backup, but as your starter, especially on the left side, and then behind him, not very good depth. This is a D-. Okorafor is not that bad for it to be an F, but it's a D-. Left guard, no one behind him, but Kevin Dotson is probably the best player on this offensive line. And even then, he's, in my opinion, serviceable. I don't think he's good. Or he's not good. He's the best player on this line. He is definitely serviceable, on that borderline of solid. But again, just not someone you'd really want starting for you. Ideally, he's a guy that can start, but he's not who you'd want to start. Best member on this offensive line, but he's just serviceable. That's really all I can say about him. He's played good at times, but just not your ideal best player on the line. With no one behind him, he's serviceable enough. It's a D+. At center, you have J.C. Hassenauer. And probably starting Kendrick Green, to be honest. I really liked Kendrick Green coming out of Illinois. I think he'll be a great blocker. I think give him a year or two and he'll be the best player on this line pretty easily. Behind him at that point, you got Hassenauer, who is probably going to be the 3, to be honest, because Finney's just more familiar. He's played with the Steelers before. He's just a bit more experienced and stuff. Either way, you've got a really nice young guy here. Even if he plays well, though, it's still a center, and he's still not going to be that good in his first year. But, a decent backup and a decent number 3. It's very meh to me. It's going to be a C. Easily the best part of this offensive line. Not the best player right now, but it's easily the best part. So Right guard, you picked up Trey Turner. He literally just had his worst year of his career, and it's been downhill for a couple years now. I don't expect him to bounce back or anything. Like, I suppose there's a universe where Banner plays well, Dotson plays well, Green plays great in his rookie season, Okorafor comes back, and Turner comes back. I suppose there's a universe. It's not this one. So Trey Turner, he's still a big downgrade. I've seen some Steelers fans who say, like, oh, it's addition by subtraction because DeCastro was bad. Yeah, he was not normal DeCastro, but this is still a gigantic downgrade. Behind him, Aviante Collins, or maybe it's Aviante, whatever, as a backup. At least Trey Turner's a kind of an upgrade over Collins, but not much. And then Rashad Coward was a nice pickup, but he's still just going to be your number 3. This is also a really bad room here. This is going to be a D for me. And then right tackle, Zach Banner's the other guy on this offensive line right now that, like, you know what you're going to get. Like, he's at least a serviceable enough guy, kind of the same with Dotson. I'd say it's a little bit... He's like a little bit less talented than Dotson, but he's pretty much there. I do like having Joe Hag and John LeGlue behind him. John LeGlue, whatever, as a 3 probably, but Joe Hag does bring some nice veteran, versatile presence to the offensive line. And like I said, Banner is, still probably the second best guy on this line. Still just barely serviceable in my opinion. It's going to be a C-. Overall, the highest grade on this offensive line was a C+. That's not good. It's a very, very poor offensive line. It's going to hold this team back, and it's not the only thing, but it's going to hold this team back. It's not good. Maybe the worst offensive line in football. Tight end, much better. You have Eric Ebron, who he's always had a bit of a drop issue, but he is still a great tight end, a top 15 type guy. And then Pat Freiermuth, fantastic blocker. Obviously, he's a great pickup in terms of at least he'll bring some blocking presence for such a horrible offensive line. I would have much rather they just picked another offensive lineman. But, he is a good enough guy to have. Behind him, you've not really got anyone. You got Golden Ticket Boy here, Zach Gentry. But, this does make up a nice duo here. Freiermuth, he does have a pretty high ceiling, though. So that's going to be a B for me. It's a pretty good duo there. Quarterback, I'm going to piss some people off. Big Ben, I don't expect anything from him this year. He started off decent last year, and obviously the season before that he was hurt, but the season before that he was fantastic. I mean, had one of his best years, but he got hurt and then he came back and he did not look good, and as the season went off, he just looked worse and worse. Now you give him this offensive line. Like, even last year, they still had Villanueva and, David DeCastro. This year, they don't even have those guys. You give him this offensive line, I would not be surprised if Big Ben gets hurt again. Mason Rudolph, Josh Dobbs, and Dwayne Haskins make up for a very, very depth chart at quarterback. Dwayne Haskins, he's always kind of had that, athletic side to his game, but I don't think he's a fit with the Steelers. I don't see him, being developed into anything. So you take one of the lesser good starting quarterbacks in the NFL. He's still a smart guy, obviously, but his arm, it's basically like Drew Brees. He's smart, he will make good decisions, but he's not going to escape any pockets. He's got a really weak arm, and at least Drew Brees had an offensive line. Steelers have maybe one of the worst in the NFL. It's not going to be good for Big Ben. And again, just really depth all around. This is going to get you a C-. It's not a good thing to have, especially with this offensive line. Like, if you had a guy, more like, say, I don't know, even just like Kirk Cousins, like, I would feel much more confident about this offense. But Big Ben, I don't expect anything from him this year. And then running back, Najee Harris headlining this running back room. I did love him. Najee Harris was my number one running back in this class. I love him as a person. I love him as a player. I think he's going to look like a bust his first year. It sucks to say that because I do love Najee Harris, like, even more just a player, like, truly, like, this guy is great. He actually drove all the way to his pro day because, like, something happened with his plane or something, but he drove all the way there. So this kid, he's dedicated, he's hardworking, he is a great talent, he's a great personality, but every running back needs an offensive line. Every running back needs an offensive line. I don't care who you are. Even if you're Derrick Henry, the Titans still have a top, probably 10 offensive line. Every running back needs one, and the Steelers do not have one. And so it sucks to say, but I feel like Najee Harris is going to look like a bust his first year. I think he'll show some nice things, and there'll be some good games for him. But another time I don't expect much from him in year one. Benny Snell might be year two, but it's probably going to be more like an Anthony McFarland or Kalen Ballage. These guys are much more like that speedy receiving threat. And since Najee Harris is also a great receiving threat, but he's obviously much more of that like bell cow type back, and that's what Benny Snell is. So I'd imagine he'll probably be your 3. You also have Jalen Samuels and Trey Edmonds, though, who I don't know if they have a fullback, but either way, this is a super deep, super good running back room. I still think Najee Harris is going to be a great running back in the NFL. It's just this offensive line is going to hold him back. So because of that, it's going to drop down to probably a B- for me. It's very talented, but they just don't have an offensive line, and every running back needs an offensive line, unless you're Christian McCaffrey. And even then, he was more of a receiving back anyways. So, so the offense, there's some really good playmakers, obviously. Like I just said, I love Najee Harris. Pat Freiermuth and Eric Ebron make a really nice tight end duo. The receiving room is really good, but Big Ben showed big signs of regressions. I don't expect him to look good, and then you add on the fact that they have maybe the worst offensive line in football. Things do not look good for this offense. Like I said, there's a world where potentially Big Ben comes back and this offensive line works out. That's like a 1 in a million shot, to be honest. It could happen, but it's just very, very hard to see it actually happening. So for right now, this offense, it's going to hold the team back as a whole. But moving on to the defense, this defense, it's good. And obviously, we'll get to coaching later, but Mike Tomlin obviously helps that out a ton. You have Cameron Hayward, who has been one of the most consistent, dominant pass rushers of the last 5+ years. He's been fantastic. Behind him, Chris Wormley, a really, really good backup. This is a fantastic room right here just because of those two. Depth beyond that, whatever, doesn't matter. Chris Wormley and Cam Hayward make up an A room. That is fantastic. Defensive tackle, Tyson Alulu came back. Great, re-addition, since he did leave technically. And Isaiah Buggs behind him. Whatever. But Tyson Alulu does make up for a solid run stuffer. No one special, but he is pretty good. So that's going to give you a B- right there. The other defensive end room, Stephon Dewitt enjoyed a very, very good year last year. Might have been his breakout year. I guess we'll have to see. I want some more, consistency from him, but he could make maybe one of the best defensive end duos in the NFL, because we haven't even gotten to another one of the pass rushers. But yeah, Stephon Dewitt, great, obviously. Was not a big fan of the Isaiah Loudermilk pick. I thought he was a mega reach. Stephon Dewitt was a great dude, but we don't know if he's going to repeat that kind of play, and you've really got nothing behind him, so for that, you're going to get a C+ for right now, but could very well go up. Then we get to TJ Watt. No one behind him. I mean, Cassius Marsh is whatever, but no one behind him. Doesn't matter. TJ Watt is a game wrecker. I just got into an argument with someone the other day about how I still think he's the 3 in the NFL. I do think Khalil Mack and Myles Garrett are better. It's not by much, though. TJ Watt has been one of the most consistently dominant pass rushers in the NFL of the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, he has 42.5 sacks. The dude is incredible. He might be even more talented than his older brother. Unless Derek Watt's older, I'm not sure about that. He might be more talented than JJ Watt. He is an crazy athlete. It definitely helps to have Stephon Dewitt and Cameron Hayward as well. This makes up for this makes up for the deadliest pass rush in the NFL. It's insanely good. Again, just because TJ Watt, you don't have any depth here, whatever. It's an A. Enough said. Middle linebacker, Devin Bush, probably you're going to be your number 1 from here on forward. Good athletic guy, but he's not really lived up to his name yet as the number 10 pick, but we'll have to see. Vince Williams, fine enough as a number 2. He's kind of like that, unathletic run stopper, but he does it well. Robert Spillane behind them. Robert Spillane secretly, before he got hurt last year, was one of the best linebackers in football. The dude's also insanely smart. I'm pretty sure he actually calls plays for this defense. a lot of the time. So yeah, Robert Spillane, obviously a great player to have there. Buddy Johnson was also another big reach in my opinion. Besides Kendrick Green and Najee. Well, I mean, besides these offensive picks, the defensive picks I was not a big fan of. But yeah, so overall, this linebacking room, it's very meh to me right now. Some potential, but it's very meh. So a C. Then this other side, outside linebacker room. You know why I love this room so much? Because not only was I a big fan of Alex Highsmith coming out of college, I was a big fan of Quincy Roche coming out of college. I actually had Quincy Roche as my number 4 pass rusher in the class. I have absolutely no idea why he fell to the 4th round. If anyone does, please let me know. I have no idea why this guy fell. He is an insanely talented dude, super explosive. I think for the most part, he was really overshadowed by Rousseau and Phillips their first 2 years at Miami. If he was only there for 2 years, both of those years he was overshadowed. So you have that, but then you also have Alex Highsmith, who, while Bud Dupree was a big loss, yes, and Alex Highsmith is definitely a downgrade, Alex Highsmith showed some really good things last year when Bud Dupree was hurt. So I'm really excited to see what he does. And I think the coolest thing about these two is that one of them has to work out. Like, these guys have too much potential and are both too explosive for both of them to not work out. One of these guys will work out. So because of that, because of the upside, you might not get any great play from that position year one, but it definitely helps having TJ Watt, Stephon Tuitt, and Cameron Hayward also alongside you. So for right now, this is going to get a C+, because one of these guys has got to work out. And whichever one it is, it's going to make up, once again, the deadliest pass rush in the NFL, even though it already is. The rich get richer. Then moving on to cornerback, this is where the defense kind of stutters a little bit. They lost Mike Hilton, which was a big loss. Your slot is probably going to be Cameron Sutton right now, who I do like though. I think Cameron Sutton has a lot of potential. He could be one of those breakout candidates this year. Your starting corner is probably going to be Joe Hayden, a nice veteran, but he's not really anyone special. Especially like nowadays, he's just not that kind of a talent. You're across from him, you probably have Justin Lane, who I wouldn't really want starting right now. He's also had a few, I remember reading something about there was something that happened off the field. I mean, he's still on the team, so obviously it either wasn't that bad or got, discarded or whatever, but either way, that's at least something to note. He's not a guy I'd want starting across as my number 2 right now. This corner room could definitely be a lot better. But again, my number 1 rule when it comes to defense is that pass rush is the most important thing. And as we just discussed, this is literally the best pass rush in the NFL. There are a few other teams where you could definitely make a case, but in my opinion, this is easily the number 1. And then again, you take in the fact that, Highsmith or Roche hasn't even, become their true self yet, in my opinion. The corners are going to look better than they really are. So, Justin Lane, although he's not a guy I'd ideally want as my number 2, he's still going to look better than he really is. James Pierre and Arthur Mollett behind them, whatever, Stephen Denmark, whatever. Steven, not Stephen. Fine enough depth pieces, but also guys you would not want starting in case one of these guys goes down. Shakur Brown was a guy that I did really like, though. He was one of my deep sleepers in this year's draft class, so I really like that pickup. I think he's got a fair amount of potential. So overall, this is some nice depth with a decent starter, a guy that I do think has a lot of potential, and someone I wouldn't want starting ideally. But again, a lot of these guys are going to play better naturally just because of pass rush. So with all that said, it's going to come out to be a B- for me. Corners and safeties will always look better if you have a great pass rush. Speaking about safeties, free safety, here I'm going to get a lot of hate again. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is overrated. Maybe him not being on my top 10 was snubbing. Maybe that was a little stupid, but I don't think he's I've seen some people call him the best safety. I just don't agree with that. He's top 10. Looking back on it now, he's top 10, but he's not the number 1. He's not top 3. I could see the argument for top 5, but he's not number 1. He's good. He is good. He's not that good. It's just simple as that. Again, like I just said, I think, especially on a defense like this, these guys are going to look better than they naturally are. He was not anything near this special when he was with Miami. Do I still think he's a good safety? Yeah, but he really has a very limited role when you consider other guys like Jesse Bates, Harrison Smith, Justin Simmons. I just don't think he's even close to the level of those. Okay, he's close. He's just not that close. He's a good safety. I think he's majorly overrated, and he definitely gets a lot of help from this pass rush, in my opinion. I think his role is limited. I'm not a big fan of him. Behind him, Antoine Brooks, whatever. Trey Norwood, he was an okay pick. I felt he was a bit of a reach, but not a huge one. An overrated but otherwise good safety, some decent depth. It's a B. Once again, I want to emphasize this. I said this about every single time I say it. I say it about everyone. Just because I think they're overrated does not mean I think they're bad. Okay? And then at strong safety, Terrell Edmonds, he's okay. He's nothing special. Miles Kilbrew, I did like that addition. He's a really nice backup. Don't know who Donovan Steiner is. But either way, it's a decent duo here. Neither one you'd really want starting for you ideally, but Terrell Edmonds does. Both of these guys can get the job done. Edmonds is obviously better, but still, I think, in my opinion, barely solid. So it's a very meh room to me. So it's gonna be elevated a bit because of the pass rush, but it's gonna be a C even though that talent is elevated. So regardless, this is a very, very good defense, especially when you have Mike Tomlin coaching it. Very, very, very good pass rush, the best in the NFL in my opinion. If it's not the best, it's one of the best. That's going to elevate the play of this entire secondary, who in itself isn't a bad secondary. It's just obviously not the best, but again, it's going to look like one of the best because of this pass rush. Very good defense here. It's a super, super good one. I just wish this offense was a bit better. And then the special teams. Jordan Berry's your punter, but they drafted Presley Harvin, so he's probably your punter of the future. Chris Boswell, pretty good kicker, and then your kick returner obviously is going to be Ray McLeod. He's again one of the best kick returners in the NFL. Overall, I love this team, love the coaching, love the culture. We'll talk about that in a second. There's a ton of playmakers on offense, ton of good young pieces. This offensive line is horrible, and Big Ben showed big time regression last year. That doesn't set you up for a good offense because the offensive line affects the quarterback, and the quarterback affects the receivers and the tight ends, and the offensive line affects the running back. So your two most important pieces to an offense are bad. So that hurts because this offense got some good pieces. It's just not there. In this defense, it's super, super good, but we'll talk about their schedule and coaching and culture now, though. And so, yeah, looking at their schedule here, what also definitely does not help this team this year is the fact that, in my opinion, they have the toughest schedule in the entire NFL. There are some easy games here. You have the Lions, the Bengals, the Bears. Okay, here's the thing. They're not easy game. The only easy game on here is the Lions. The rest are either toss-ups, very difficult games, or losses. Where do you even start? Bills, Packers. Of course, if they have Aaron Rodgers, the Broncos, the Seahawks, Browns, Chargers, Bengals, Ravens, Vikings, Titans, Chiefs. All of these are very tough games. Because again, if you are facing a team with a good pass rush, the Broncos, the Packers, the Ravens, you're going to be in big trouble. I love the coaching. Mike Tomlin is a top 5 head coach in my opinion. I don't know exactly where I'd place him. Maybe I'll do a video on that someday. But he's one of the best coaches in football. He's never led a losing season with Pittsburgh. But sadly, I feel like that's going to be broken this year. I love the culture here, but I feel like sometimes they can almost be focused more on dancing than winning. I want to like this team, but you give such a tough schedule to a team with no quarterback, no offensive line. I don't think they'll be horrible, but at the same time, what are you going to do? You can only coach a team out of that kind of a position so much. And I think Mike Tomlin and that defense will coach them to a good amount of wins for such a poor offensive line and quarterback situation. But I just don't expect much more than that. I hate to say it, but I think Mike Tomlin's non-losing season streak is going to be snapped this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's as close as 8-9, and maybe they go like 9-8. But I don't. Their ceiling is 9-8, so it's going to be difficult. There's just that's too big of a it's too big of a hole to have both no offensive line and no quarterback. I don't care how good your defense is. This is maybe the best defense in football, one of the best coaches, but such a tough schedule, no quarterback, no offensive line, is all what combines them to put them down here at number 19. But that is my number 19 power rank team for the 2021 NFL season. If you did like the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.